The dust rose in slow spirals under the midday sun, coating the windshield with a thin amber film. Sergeant Marcus Kane pressed his palm against the steering wheel and squinted at the cracked asphalt stretching ahead. The convoy had been delayed 3 hours. Communications were spotty, and the heat, thick, oppressive, suffocating, clung to his uniform like a second skin. But something was wrong. In the seat beside him, Rex shifted his weight, ears flicking forward with precision. The German shepherd's eyes, dark, intelligent, unblinking, locked onto something beyond the glass. A low rumble vibrated through the dog's chest, barely audible but impossible to ignore. Marcus turned his head slowly. The road ahead was empty, no vehicles, no civilians, just heat waves distorting the horizon and the skeletal remains of a checkpoint abandoned months ago. "Easy, boy," Marcus murmured, though his own pulse had already begun to quicken. Rex didn't ease. The convoy rolled to a halt. Static crackled through the radio. Lieutenant Hayes, 2 vehicles back, asked for a status update. Marcus responded with the only truth he had. Nothing visible, nothing certain, but something off. He stepped out of the vehicle. The heat slammed into him instantly, a wall of pressure that made breathing feel like labor. Sweat trickled down his temple, tracing the line of his jaw. He adjusted the rifle slung across his chest and scanned the perimeter. Rex leapt down beside him, nose already working the air in rapid bursts. His tail was stiff, his posture rigid, and then Marcus saw it. Parked 50 meters off the main road, half hidden behind a collapsed concrete barrier, was a sedan, dark blue paint peeling, windows tinted. Dust thick enough to suggest it had been there for days or hours. It was impossible to tell, but Rex was already moving toward it. "Rex, heel." The dog ignored him. Marcus's stomach tightened. In 3 years of deployment, Rex had never disobeyed a direct command. Not once. The dog moved with purpose, head low, muscles coiled beneath black and tan fur. Marcus followed. His boots crunched over gravel. The air smelled wrong, metallic, faintly sweet like rust mixed with rot. He raised a fist. The convoy behind him froze, engines idling, soldiers watching. Rex circled the sedan twice, pausing at the driver's door. Then he moved to the rear. His barking erupted, sharp, insistent, frantic. Marcus's breath caught. "Rex, back!" The dog didn't move. He clawed at the trunk, whining between barks, his entire body trembling with urgency. Lieutenant Hayes jogged up beside Marcus, weapon raised. "What have we got?" "I don't know yet." Hayes's gaze flicked to the trunk. "Could be rigged." "Could be," Marcus agreed. But Rex was screaming now, a sound Marcus had only heard twice before. Once when they'd found a family trapped beneath rubble. Once when a child had wandered into a minefield. Marcus's hand hovered over the trunk latch. "Sergeant!" He popped it open. The lid swung up slowly, creaking on rusted hinges, and for 3 full seconds no one moved. Inside the trunk, curled into a fetal position, was a girl, maybe 6 years old, maybe younger. Her dress was torn, dirt-streaked, soaked in something dark that might have been blood or might have been oil. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were cracked and pale, but her chest was rising, falling, rising again. Marcus dropped to his knees. His hands moved on instinct, checking for pulse, for breathing, for injury. Hayes was already calling for a medic. Soldiers swarmed the vehicle. Rex stood guard at Marcus's side, ears forward, eyes locked on the girl as if daring the world to take her away. "She's alive," Marcus whispered, though he barely believed the words himself. But as he lifted her carefully from the trunk, something fell from her tiny fist. A bracelet, silver, engraved. The clasp was broken, but the inscription was still visible. "Para Elara, sempre." Marcus's blood turned to ice. He knew that name. 3 days earlier, Marcus had woken to the sound of rain drumming against the tin roof of the barracks. It was the kind of rain that didn't fall, it assaulted, heavy, relentless, turning the courtyard into a shallow lake within minutes. He lay in the narrow cot, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between thunderclaps. Rex was curled at the foot of the bed, head resting on his paws, eyes half open. The dog rarely slept deeply. Marcus suspected he never truly relaxed, not here, not in a place where danger could erupt from silence without warning. The mission briefing had been standard. Patrol Route 7, check supply convoys, maintain visibility. Routine, boring, safe, in the way nothing was ever truly safe. But Marcus had felt it even then. A tension coiling in his chest, a whisper at the edge of his thoughts that something was coming. He'd ignored it. By noon the rain had stopped. The air was thick with humidity, the ground soft and treacherous. Marcus and Rex had been paired with a reconnaissance unit, tasked with sweeping the eastern perimeter. The villages out there were quiet. Too quiet, some said. But there had been no incidents in weeks. As they moved through the checkpoint, Marcus noticed a woman standing near the roadside. She was young, early 20s maybe, with a child clinging to her leg. The child stared at Rex with wide, curious eyes. The woman's expression was harder to read. Fear, suspicion, grief. Marcus nodded to her. She didn't respond. Rex paused beside the child, tail wagging gently. The little girl reached out, fingers brushing the dog's fur. For a moment the world felt lighter. Then the woman yanked the child back, murmuring something sharp and fast in a dialect Marcus didn't recognize. She turned and walked away. Marcus watched them disappear into the maze of narrow streets. He told himself it meant nothing. People here had reasons to be wary of soldiers, of uniforms, of anything connected to the conflict that had devoured their lives. But that night, lying in the barracks, Marcus couldn't shake the image of the child's face, the way her eyes had followed Rex, the way the mother's hands had trembled. He should have asked questions, he didn't. And now, staring at the bracelet in his palm, Marcus realized he'd seen this inscription before, on a missing persons report circulated 2 weeks ago. A child abducted from a refugee camp, name Ilara, age 6, last seen wearing a silver bracelet. The report had been filed by a woman named Camilla. Marcus's throat tightened. The woman from the checkpoint. Rex's instincts had always been sharper than any human's. It was something Marcus had learned early in their partnership. The dog didn't just react to sounds or smells. He read environments. He sensed shifts in tension, changes in air pressure, the invisible threads of danger that humans dismissed as paranoia. On the second day after the briefing, Rex had begun acting strangely. They were patrolling a sector known as the Grey Zone, a stretch of abandoned buildings and collapsed infrastructure where squatters occasionally set up camp. Intel suggested it was clear. No hostiles, no civilians, nothing. But Rex had stopped in the middle of a street, head tilted, ears swiveling like radar dishes. "What is it, boy?" The dog whined, a high, thin sound that made Marcus's skin prickle. "Rex, heel." Rex moved forward instead, pulling against the leash with uncharacteristic force. Marcus followed, weapon raised, eyes scanning windows, doorways, shadows. They stopped in front of a warehouse. The door was ajar, swinging gently in the breeze. Rex's entire body was rigid, trembling. Marcus stepped inside. The interior was dark, lit only by thin shafts of sunlight cutting through holes in the roof. Dust motes danced in the air. The floor was littered with debris, broken glass, twisted metal, scraps of fabric. And in the corner, barely visible, was a child's shoe. Pink, scuffed, tiny. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He swept the room with his flashlight. Empty. But Rex was still whining, still pulling toward a door at the back of the warehouse. Marcus opened it. The room beyond was smaller, windowless. The walls were stained with something dark. A chair sat in the center, ropes coiled on the floor beside it. The air smelled of sweat and fear. Marcus backed out slowly, radio already in hand. "Command, this is Kane. I need a forensics team at my location. Possible abduction site." Static, then, "Copy that, stand by." But Marcus didn't stand by. He followed Rex back outside, back into the glaring sunlight, back to the convoy waiting on the edge of the Grey Zone. And he thought about the woman at the checkpoint, about the child with the wide eyes, about the bracelet engraved with a name. He should have known sooner. The convoy pushed deeper into the eastern sector, moving along roads that barely qualified as roads anymore. Marcus drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on Rex's head. The dog was calmer now, but still alert, eyes scanning the landscape as if searching for something invisible. Lieutenant Hayes sat in the passenger seat, rifle across his lap, jaw tight. "You think this is connected to the missing kid?" "I don't know," Marcus said. But he did, he just didn't want to say it out loud. The checkpoint where Marcus had seen the woman, Camilla, was 20 minutes ahead. If she was still there, if she'd returned looking for her daughter, maybe there was a chance. Maybe there were answers. But as they approached, Marcus saw smoke, thin, black, rising from the cluster of buildings near the roadside. "Stop the vehicle," Hayes barked. Marcus hit the brakes. The convoy came to a halt. Soldiers dismounted, forming a perimeter. Marcus grabbed his rifle and opened the door. Rex was already on the ground, nose working the air, body tense. They moved toward the checkpoint. The buildings were still standing, but barely. Scorch marks blackened the walls, windows shattered, doors hanging off hinges. The air reeked of gasoline and burnt plastic. "Sweep the area," Hayes ordered. Marcus and Rex entered the first structure, a small shelter that might have been a shop once. Inside, the floor was littered with personal belongings, clothes, photographs, a child's drawing pinned to the wall. And in the center of the room, a single object, a stuffed rabbit, its fur singed, one ear missing. Marcus picked it up carefully, turning it over in his hands. Rex barked. Marcus turned. The dog was standing at the threshold, staring at something outside. Marcus followed his gaze. Across the street, partially obscured by debris, was another vehicle. Same make as the sedan they'd found. Same dark blue paint. Marcus's pulse spiked. Hayes! But Hayes was already moving, weapon raised, motioning for backup. They approached the vehicle slowly, methodically. Rex stayed at Marcus's side, every muscle coiled. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the seats were empty. But on the dashboard, smeared in something dark, was a message. Você não pode salvá-los todos. You can't save them all. Marcus's hands trembled. Rex barked again, sharp, urgent, frantic. And then Marcus saw it. In the back seat, half hidden beneath a blanket, was another child. A boy. Maybe 4 years old, unconscious, bruised, breathing shallowly. Marcus reached for him, but before he could lift the child, a sound split the air. A distant rumble, deep and mechanical, growing louder with every second. Hayes's voice crackled through the radio. "We've got movement, multiple vehicles, inbound, fast." Marcus's blood turned to ice. They weren't alone, and whoever had left these children here was coming back. Marcus's hands moved on instinct, lifting the boy from the back seat, checking vitals, wrapping him in the blanket, despite the suffocating heat. The child's skin was cold, too cold. "Hayes, get the medic, now!" But Hayes wasn't listening. He was staring past Marcus, weapon raised, eyes locked on the horizon where dust clouds were rising fast. 3 vehicles, maybe 4, closing the distance with alarming speed. "We need to move," Hayes said, voice tight. "We're sitting ducks out here." Marcus cradled the boy against his chest and turned toward the convoy. Rex was already sprinting ahead, barking commands Marcus didn't need translated. "Run! Now! Faster!" They reached the lead vehicle in seconds. Marcus climbed into the back seat, still holding the boy. A medic, Corporal Diaz, slid in beside him, already opening her kit. "Pulse is weak," she said, fingers pressed to the boy's neck. "Breathing shallow, dehydration, possible head trauma. We need to get him out of here." "We're working on it," Hayes snapped from the driver's seat. The convoy lurched forward. Rex leapt into the vehicle, positioning himself between Marcus and the door, eyes fixed on the road behind them. The dog's body was tense, every muscle coiled, ready to explode into action. Marcus glanced through the rear window. The dust clouds were closer now. He could make out shapes, trucks, older models, rusted but functional. No markings, no flags, just speed and intent. "Command, this is Kane. We are under pursuit. 3, correction 4 unidentified vehicles. Requesting immediate air support." Static crackled through the radio. Then a voice, distorted but audible. "Air support unavailable. Nearest unit is 30 minutes out." "You're on your own, Kane." Marcus's jaw tightened. 30 minutes might as well have been 30 years. Diaz worked quickly, wrapping an IV line around the boy's arm, muttering under her breath in Spanish. The child stirred, eyelids fluttering, lips parting as if trying to speak. "Easy," Marcus whispered, brushing hair from the boy's forehead. "You're safe now." But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. The first gunshot shattered the illusion. Quasi Rintuxion, the bullet punched through the rear windshield, spider-webbing the glass but not penetrating fully. Hayes swore, swerving hard to the left. The convoy scattered, vehicles peeling off in different directions to avoid creating a single target. Marcus pulled the boy down, shielding him with his body. Diaz pressed herself against the seat, hands still gripping the IV line. Rex barked, sharp, furious, protective. More gunfire. This time a spray of bullets stitched across the road beside them, kicking up gravel and dust. "They're not trying to stop us," Hayes said, voice cold. "They're trying to kill us." Marcus's mind raced. Who were they? Militia, traffickers, mercenaries. And why were they so desperate to recover 2 children? Unless it wasn't about recovery. Unless it was about silence. "We need to lose them," Marcus said, working on it. Hayes yanked the wheel hard, veering off the main road onto a narrow dirt path that barely qualified as passable. The vehicle jolted violently, suspension screaming in protest. Diaz cursed, steadying the IV bag. Rex shifted his weight, claws digging into the seat for balance. Behind them, the pursuing vehicles followed without hesitation. Marcus looked down at the boy. His eyes were open now, wide, terrified, glassy with fever. He was trying to say something, lips moving soundlessly. "It's okay," Marcus said softly. "You're safe, I promise." The boy shook his head weakly. "Not safe," he whispered in accented English. They'll come. They always come." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Who will come?" But the boy's eyes rolled back and he went limp again. Diaz checked his pulse. "He's still with us, but barely." Hayes slammed the brakes. Ahead of them, the path ended abruptly, a collapsed bridge, the gap too wide to jump, the drop too steep to survive. "Dead end," Hayes said. Marcus's heart hammered. He turned, looking back the way they'd come. The 4 vehicles were closing in, engines roaring, dust rising like a storm. "Out of the vehicle," Marcus ordered. "Now." They moved fast, Hayes, Diaz, Marcus carrying the boy, Rex leading the way. They scrambled down the embankment, using rocks and debris as cover. The convoy vehicles formed a defensive perimeter above them, soldiers taking positions, weapons trained on the approaching threat. Marcus laid the boy gently behind a boulder, Rex standing guard beside him. Diaz crouched low, still holding the IV line, eyes wide with fear. "Who are these people?" she whispered. "I don't know," Marcus said, "but they're not here to negotiate." The 4 vehicles skidded to a halt 50 meters away. For a long moment no one moved. Then the doors opened, and Marcus saw them. There were 6 of them, maybe 7. Men in mismatched clothing, faces obscured by scarves and sunglasses. They carried weapons, assault rifles, old but functional, the kind traffickers and smugglers favored. But it was the woman who stepped out last that made Marcus's breath catch. She was young, mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back tightly, and eyes that burned with something beyond rage, something colder, sharper, more deliberate. She walked forward slowly, hands empty, palms visible, a gesture of peace, or a trap. "Sergeant Kane," she called out in perfect English. "We don't want trouble." Marcus rose from cover, weapon raised. "Then turn around and leave." The woman smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "You have something that belongs to us." "The children belong to no one," Marcus said flatly. "You misunderstand." The woman's tone was conversational, almost friendly. "The children are evidence. Evidence of a system you disrupted. Evidence we cannot allow to exist." Marcus's stomach turned. "You're traffickers." "We're business people," the woman corrected, "and you've cost us a great deal of money. But we're reasonable. Give us the children and we'll leave. You and your unit can walk away. No one else needs to die today." Rex growled low, teeth bared. Marcus's grip tightened on his rifle. "Not happening." The woman sighed as if disappointed. "I was afraid you'd say that." She raised her hand and all hell broke loose. The gunfire was immediate, deafening, chaotic. Marcus dropped behind the boulder, pulling Diaz down with him. Bullets ricocheted off stone, sending chips of rock flying. Rex barked furiously, staying low, protecting the boy. Above them, soldiers returned fire, their shots precise and controlled. But the traffickers had numbers and position, and they didn't care about cover or safety. They advanced, firing indiscriminately, relentless. "We can't hold them off forever," Diaz shouted over the noise. Marcus knew she was right. He glanced at the boy, still unconscious, still vulnerable. Then at Rex, who met his gaze with unwavering loyalty. "Stay with him," Marcus ordered Diaz. "No matter what happens, you keep him alive." "Where are you going?" Marcus didn't answer. He grabbed his rifle, checked the magazine, and moved. He climbed the embankment, using the chaos as cover, circling wide around the convoy. His target was clear: the woman. She was giving orders, coordinating the assault, controlling the flow of violence. Take her out, and the attack would falter. Marcus moved fast, staying low, using shadows and debris. He could hear Hayes shouting commands, soldiers coordinating suppressive fire. The air was thick with smoke and dust. He reached a position 20 meters from the woman's location, raised his weapon, aimed, and then he saw it. In her hand, partially hidden by her sleeve, was a phone, and on the screen, barely visible but unmistakable, was a photograph of Ilara, the girl from the trunk. Marcus's finger froze on the trigger. The woman wasn't just a trafficker. She was the one who had taken the children, and she was tracking more. Marcus's mind raced through scenarios, strategies, consequences. If he killed her, the network might scatter or retaliate. If he captured her, she might talk or lead them to more victims. But if he did nothing, she'd keep hunting. Rex appeared beside him, silent as a shadow, eyes locked on the woman. The dog's instinct was simple. Protect the innocent, stop the threat. Marcus made his decision. He shifted his aim, not at the woman, but at her phone. One shot, clean, precise. The phone shattered in her hand. She screamed, clutching her wrist, stumbling backward. Her men turned, confused, disoriented. The coordinated assault collapsed into chaos. "Fall back!" Marcus shouted to his unit. "Move, now!" The convoy vehicles roared to life. Soldiers scrambled aboard, providing cover fire as they retreated. Marcus grabbed the boy, Rex leading the way, Diaz close behind. They reached the lead vehicle and climbed in. Hayes floored the accelerator. The convoy tore away from the collapsed bridge, leaving the traffickers behind in a cloud of dust and confusion. Marcus looked down at the boy in his arms. Still breathing, still alive, for now. But as the convoy raced toward safety, Marcus couldn't shake the image of the photograph on the woman's phone, Ilara's face. And beneath it a list of names, a list of children, and one name at the very top circled in red, Samuel. Marcus's throat tightened. He looked at the boy he was holding. "Are you Samuel?" he whispered. The boy's eyes opened slowly, and he nodded. They reached the forward operating base 40 minutes later, tires screaming as the convoy pulled through the gates. Medics swarmed the vehicle, lifting Samuel onto a stretcher, hooking him to monitors, shouting medical jargon Marcus barely understood. Diaz stayed with him, her face pale but determined. Rex followed the stretcher, refusing to leave the boy's side until Marcus called him back. "Good boy," Marcus murmured, running his hand over the dog's head. "You saved him, you saved them both." But Rex wasn't celebrating. His ears were still alert, body still tense, because the danger wasn't over. Marcus knew it too. He walked into the command center, where Lieutenant Hayes was already briefing the colonel. A hard-faced woman in her 50s, with eyes that missed nothing. "Traffickers," Hayes was saying. "Organized, armed, coordinated. They knew exactly where we'd be." The colonel's gaze shifted to Marcus. "And the children." "Two recovered," Marcus said. "Ilara and Samuel, both from the missing persons report circulated 2 weeks ago. There may be more. Where are the parents?" "Ilara's mother, Camilla, was at the checkpoint 3 days ago. I don't know where she is now." "Samuel's family? I don't have any information yet." The colonel nodded slowly. "We'll run the names through the database. In the meantime, I want a full debrief, every detail, every face, every word." "There's something else," Marcus said. He pulled out his phone and opened the photo he'd taken of the message scrawled on the sedan's dashboard. "You can't save them all." The colonel's jaw tightened. "They're not just traffickers," Marcus continued. "They're organized, methodical, and they're tracking targets. I saw a list on one of their phones, names, children, locations. Did you get the phone?" "No. I destroyed it to break their communication." The colonel exhaled slowly. "Then we need to find another way to trace them." Marcus hesitated. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver bracelet, the one Ilara had been clutching. "This might help," he said. The colonel took the bracelet, turning it over in her hands. The inscription was still visible. "Para Ilara, sempre." "For Ilara, always," the colonel translated softly. "This belonged to her mother." "Yes," Marcus said, "and if we can find Camilla, we might be able to find the others." The colonel met his gaze. "Then find her, Sergeant, before anyone else disappears." Marcus spent the next 6 hours combing through records, interviewing refugees, following leads that went nowhere. Rex stayed by his side the entire time, silent but present, a constant reminder of why they were doing this. Finally, near midnight, Marcus found something. A registration form filed at the refugee camp 3 months ago. Name, Camilla Torres. Occupation, teacher. Last known location, Sector 9, Building 14, Unit 7. Marcus grabbed his gear and headed for the door. "Kane," Hayes called after him. "It's past curfew. You'll be operating without backup." "I know. You could wait until morning." Marcus paused, hand on the door. "How many kids disappear in a night, Lieutenant?" Hayes didn't answer. Marcus left. Leitung Sector 9 was a sprawl of makeshift shelters and crumbling apartment blocks, home to thousands of displaced families. Marcus and Rex moved through the streets quietly, avoiding patrols, sticking to shadows. The air was thick with the smell of cooking fires and desperation. Building 14 was near the edge of the camp, half collapsed, barely standing. Marcus climbed the stairs carefully, testing each step before putting his weight on it. Rex led the way, nose working, ears forward. Unit 7 was on the 3rd floor. The door was ajar. Marcus knocked softly. "Camilla." No response. He pushed the door open. The room was small, sparse. A single mattress on the floor, a table, a few belongings scattered about. But it was empty, except for one thing. On the table, held down by a small stone, was a photograph. Marcus picked it up carefully. It showed a woman, young, smiling, holding a little girl with dark curls and bright eyes. Ilara. And written on the back in shaky handwriting, "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Please find my daughter. Please save her. Her name is Ilara. She's all I have." Marcus's hands trembled. He turned the photo over again, studying the image. And then he saw something else. In the background, barely visible, was another figure, a man standing at a distance, watching. His face was obscured by shadows, but Marcus recognized the posture, the stance, the way he held himself. It was the same as one of the men from the convoy ambush. Marcus's blood ran cold. Camilla hadn't just been separated from her daughter. She'd been taken. By the same people who'd taken Ilara. And if Marcus was right, she was still alive, being used as leverage, as bait, as proof that resistance was futile. Rex whined softly, pressing his nose against Marcus's leg. Marcus looked down at the dog. "We're going to find her," he said quietly. "All of them, I promise." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. The traffickers weren't just criminals. They were hunters, and Marcus had just become their prey. Marcus returned to the base at dawn, exhausted but focused. The photograph was still in his pocket, burning like evidence of a failure he couldn't name yet. Rex walked beside him, silent, alert, watching the shadows as if expecting them to come alive. In the medical bay, Samuel was awake. The boy sat upright in a narrow bed, hooked to monitors that beeped steadily. His face was pale, bruised, but his eyes were sharp. Too sharp for a child who should have been broken by what he'd endured. Ilara was in the bed beside him, still unconscious but stable. Her small hand clutched the silver bracelet Marcus had returned to her. Marcus approached slowly, careful not to startle the boy. "Samuel?" The boy's gaze snapped to him, wary but not hostile. "You're the one who found me," Samuel said quietly. His English was good, deliberate, as if every word had been practiced. "Me and Rex," Marcus said, gesturing to the dog. "He's the one who knew you were in danger." Samuel looked at Rex for a long moment. Then slowly he extended his hand. Rex stepped forward, allowing the boy to rest his palm on the dog's head. "He's a good dog," Samuel whispered. "The best." Samuel pulled his hand back, folding his arms tightly across his chest. "They'll come for us again." Marcus crouched beside the bed. "Who will?" "The people who took me. The people who took Ilara. They take children. They sell them. They—" Samuel's voice cracked. "They don't let anyone go." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You're safe here. I won't let them take you." "You can't stop them," Samuel said flatly. "No one can. They have people everywhere. Police, soldiers, doctors. They know where we are. They always know." The words hit Marcus like ice water. "What do you mean they have people everywhere?" Samuel hesitated, then leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "The woman who took me. She wore a uniform, a military uniform, just like yours." Marcus's blood turned cold. The implications were devastating. If Samuel was right, if the trafficking network had infiltrated the military, then nowhere was safe. Every report, every movement, every strategy could be compromised. Marcus went directly to Colonel Rivera. She listened without interruption, her expression unreadable as Marcus relayed Samuel's claim. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled beneath her chin. "That's a serious accusation, Sergeant." "I know." "Do you believe him?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Yes." Rivera exhaled slowly. "If he's right, we have a problem. A big one. We need to move the children," Marcus said. "Somewhere off-grid, somewhere the network can't track." "And where would that be?" Rivera's tone was sharp. "Every safe house, every base, every checkpoint is logged. If someone on the inside wants to find them, they will." Marcus felt the weight of impossibility pressing down on him. "Then we don't log it," he said. "We move them ourselves, just me, Rex, and maybe one other person we trust completely. We disappear for as long as it takes to figure out who's dirty." Rivera studied him for a long moment. "You're asking me to authorize an unsanctioned operation. I'm asking you to save 2 kids. Rivera's gaze shifted to the window, where the sun was climbing slowly over the horizon. "If you do this, Kane, you're on your own. No backup, no air support. No extraction if things go sideways. I understand. And if you're wrong, if Samuel is confused or lying or manipulated, you'll have violated protocol for nothing. Your career will be over. Marcus met her eyes. My career doesn't matter if those kids die. Rivera's lips pressed into a thin line. Then she nodded. You have 72 hours. After that, I'll need to report this up the chain. Use them wisely. Then Marcus moved fast. He requisitioned a civilian vehicle, an old SUV, unmarked, unremarkable. He packed supplies, water, rations, medical kits, ammunition. He briefed Diaz, the only medic he trusted completely, and she agreed to come without hesitation. Where are we going? She asked as they loaded the vehicle. Away, Marcus said simply. By midday, they were ready. Marcus carried Samuel to the SUV, the boy wrapped in a blanket despite the heat. Diaz lifted Ilara, still unconscious, cradling her carefully. Rex jumped into the back seat, positioning himself between the children, watchful and protective. They drove for hours, avoiding main roads, sticking to dirt paths and forgotten trails. The landscape blurred, sand, rock, scrub, endless stretches of emptiness that felt both liberating and suffocating. Samuel sat quietly, staring out the window. Occasionally he glanced at Marcus, as if checking to see if the soldier was still there, still real. Where are we going? Samuel finally asked. Somewhere safe. There's no such thing. Marcus didn't argue. He just kept driving. Fast TV, and they stopped at an abandoned outpost near the border, a cluster of buildings long since forgotten by the military, marked on no current maps. Marcus swept the area with Rex before bringing the children inside. The structures were weathered but intact, offering shelter from the sun and cover from the road. Diaz set up a makeshift medical station, checking vitals, adjusting IVs, ensuring both children were stable. Ilara woke that evening. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpening with fear. She tried to sit up to pull away, but Diaz's hands were gentle, calming. It's okay, Mika, Diaz whispered in Spanish. You're safe, no one will hurt you. Ilara's gaze darted around the room, taking in Marcus, Rex, Samuel, the unfamiliar surroundings. Then her eyes landed on the bracelet around her wrist. She touched it carefully, as if checking to make sure it was real. Maman, she whispered. Where's my maman? Marcus knelt beside her bed. We're looking for her. I promise you, we're going to find her. Ilara's eyes filled with tears. They took her. They took her because of me. No, Marcus said firmly. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. But Ilara was already crying, silent, shaking sobs that broke something inside Marcus's chest. Rex moved closer, resting his head on the edge of the bed. Ilara reached out instinctively, fingers tangling in the dog's fur, and slowly the sobs quieted. That night, Marcus sat outside, staring at the stars. Rex lay beside him, ears twitching at every distant sound. We're running out of time, boy, Marcus murmured. The dog's tail thumped once against the dirt. Marcus pulled out the photograph he'd taken from Camilla's apartment. He studied the shadowy figure in the background, the man who'd been watching. He'd seen that posture before, that stance, that deliberate stillness. And then it clicked. The man wasn't just part of the trafficking network, he was military. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through personnel files until he found the match. Captain Javier Reyes, supply officer, stationed at the forward operating base. Access to convoy schedules, refugee camp locations, personnel movements, access to everything. Marcus's hands trembled. Reyes had been there when Marcus filed the missing persons report for Ilara. He'd been there when the convoy routes were planned. He'd been there when Samuel was found. He'd been there the entire time. Marcus stood abruptly, rage and clarity flooding his veins. Diaz, he called into the building, I need you to watch the kids. Where are you going? To end this, Marcus drove back to the base alone, leaving Rex behind to protect the children. It was a risk, a massive, potentially fatal risk, but he couldn't wait any longer. If Reyes realized Marcus was onto him, he'd disappear. The network would scatter, and Camilla, along with who knew how many other victims, would be lost forever. Marcus arrived at the base just after midnight, parking far from the main gate, moving through shadows like a ghost. He found Reyes in his quarters, a small room near the supply depot, sparsely furnished, meticulously organized. Reyes looked up as Marcus entered, his expression shifting from surprise to cold calculation in less than a second. Sergeant Kane, this is unexpected. Where is she? Marcus's voice was flat, dangerous. Where is who? Camila Torres, Hilara's mother. Where are you keeping her? Reyes's smile was thin, humorless. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus stepped closer. I found the photograph. I know you were watching her. I know you're part of the network. And I know you've been feeding them information from inside this base. Reyes's eyes flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been fear. Then he lunged. The fight was brutal, fast, desperate. Reyes was trained, skilled, ruthless, but Marcus was fueled by something stronger than skill. He was fueled by the image of two children crying in an abandoned outpost, by the memory of a mother's handwritten plea, by the knowledge that every second wasted was another second someone suffered. Marcus slammed Reyes against the wall, forearm pressed to the man's throat. Tell me where she is. Reyes gasped, struggled, then went still. Warehouse 14, he choked out, 3 kilometers east of the checkpoint. She's there, along with the others. Marcus's blood roared in his ears. How many others? 6, maybe 7. Kids. Women. All waiting for transport. Marcus's grip tightened. Who's running this? Reyes laughed, a broken, bitter sound. You think it's just me? You think one arrest will stop it? This network is everywhere. You'll never stop it all. Maybe not, Marcus said coldly, but I'll stop you. He pulled Reyes away from the wall and zip-tied his hands behind his back. Then he dragged him to the command center and shoved him into a chair in front of Colonel Rivera. He's your mole, Marcus said, and he just gave me a location. Rivera's expression was stone. Get a team together now. The raid on Warehouse 14 was swift, precise, overwhelming. Marcus led the assault. With Hayes and a hand-picked squad of soldiers he trusted, they breached the doors at dawn, moving through the structure room by room, clearing threats, securing hostages. They found them in the back, 7 people, all bound, all terrified, 3 children, 2 women, an elderly man, and Camilla. She was barely conscious, bruised and dehydrated, but alive. When Marcus cut her restraints, her eyes opened slowly, struggling to focus. Ilara, she whispered. My daughter. She's safe, Marcus said gently. She's alive, and she's waiting for you. Camilla collapsed into his arms, sobbing. The reunion happened in the abandoned outpost, under a sky turning gold with sunrise. Marcus carried Camilla inside, Diaz supporting her on the other side. Ilara was sitting on the edge of the bed, Samuel beside her, both children staring at the door with wide, hopeful eyes. When Ilara saw her mother, she screamed, a sound of pure, unfiltered joy. She leapt from the bed and ran, crashing into Camilla's arms, with enough force to nearly knock them both over. Camilla held her daughter tightly, sobbing, whispering words in Portuguese that Marcus didn't need to understand. Samuel watched quietly, tears streaming down his face. Marcus crouched beside him. We're looking for your family too, I promise. Samuel nodded, wiping his eyes. Thank you. Rex padded over and rested his head on Samuel's lap. The boy wrapped his arms around the dog and held on. The network was dismantled over the following weeks. Reyes gave up names under interrogation, contacts, locations, operatives embedded in military and civilian agencies across the region. Arrests were made, safeguards were implemented, and slowly, carefully, the survivors were relocated to secure facilities where they could begin to heal. Samuel was reunited with his aunt, who had been searching for him for months. The moment they saw each other, they both collapsed, holding each other as if they'd never let go. Hilara and Camilla were granted asylum and relocated to a refugee resettlement program, where they began rebuilding their lives. Before they left, Camilla found Marcus in the courtyard, Rex at his side. I don't know how to thank you, she said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She knelt in front of Rex, running her hand over the dog's head. You saved my daughter. You saved me. You saved all of us. Rex's tail wagged gently. Camilla looked up at Marcus. What will you do now? Marcus glanced at Rex, then back at her. Keep looking. There are more people out there who need help. Camilla nodded. Then I will pray for you every day. 3 months later, Marcus received a letter. It was postmarked from a small town he'd never heard of, written in careful English on lined paper. Dear Sergeant Kane and Rex, we are safe now. We have a home. Mama is working as a teacher again, and I go to school every day. I have friends, I have a bed, I have food. But I think about you every day. I think about how you found me in the dark, how you didn't give up, how Rex knew I was there when no one else did. Marmon says that heroes come in many forms. She says some wear uniforms, some walk on four legs. Some are just people who choose to care when it would be easier not to. I think all of those are true. Thank you for being my hero. Thank you for saving me. I will never forget you. Love, Ilara. Marcus folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Rex looked up at him, ears forward, eyes bright. Ready for the next one, boy? The dog barked once, and together they walked toward the convoy waiting at the gate. There are moments in life when the world hinges on a single choice, when one person decides to listen to their instinct, when one dog refuses to ignore what humans cannot see, when one act of courage becomes the difference between life and death. You might never know when that moment will come. You might never realize the impact of your actions until years later, or never at all. But the truth is this: heroism is not about glory. It's not about recognition or medals or fame. It's about showing up. It's about refusing to walk away. It's about choosing again and again to protect the vulnerable, to fight for the voiceless, to stand between danger and innocence, even when the odds are impossible. Samuel and Ilara survived because one soldier chose to investigate, because one dog refused to stop barking, because one person believed that saving a life mattered more than following orders. And in a world that often feels dark, that is everything. So the next time you see someone in need, someone scared, someone lost, someone crying out for help, ask yourself this: will you be the one who walks past, or will you be the one who stops? Because heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they walk on four paws, and sometimes they're just people like you, choosing in one critical moment to care.